The man who said God is dead. But why? What does it mean to become who you are? Not who your family expects, not who your culture rewards, not who your time applauds, but who you are, stripped of illusion. In 1844, in a quiet Prussian village, a frail boy was born into a devout Lutheran home. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche. His father was a pastor, his household religious, his future seemingly predictable. But at the age of 5, he watched his father descend into mental collapse before dying of a brain illness. Soon after, his younger brother died as well. Loss arrived early. Silence settled early. And perhaps so did the question that would define his life. What remains when certainty disappears? Nietzsche grew into a prodigy in language and classical studies, becoming one of the youngest professors ever appointed at the University of Basel at just 24. He believed deeply in culture, in art, in the possibility of human greatness. Above all, he believed in Richard Wagner, whom he saw as a cultural redeemer capable of restoring depth to a shallow modern world. Nietzsche admired him intensely, but admiration can become dependence, and dependence clouds judgment. When Wagner began leaning into nationalism, grandiosity, and Christian themes Nietzsche thought Europe needed to overcome, the illusion shattered. Nietzsche chose intellectual honesty over loyalty and broke with him publicly. It was his first great act of self-overcoming, and it cost him both friendship and belonging. Around this time, he encountered Lou Andreas Salome, a brilliant and independent thinker. Nietzsche saw in her a rare mind capable of understanding his philosophical vision. He proposed marriage. She refused. The rejection wounded him more deeply than scholarly criticism ever had. Philosophy can defend against argument, but not against loneliness. His health deteriorated, migraines, failing eyesight, nausea, and he resigned his professorship. He wandered across Europe alone, writing in rented rooms, surviving on a modest pension. His books barely sold. The man who would later reshape modern thought lived then as a near invisible figure. In that isolation, he wrote the words that would echo through history. God is dead. It was not a celebration, but a diagnosis. Nietzsche saw that Europe was losing not only religious faith, but faith in shared meaning itself. The old moral structures were crumbling, yet nothing solid had replaced them. He feared the rise of nihilism, a world in which nothing truly matters. His response was radical. If inherited values no longer hold, then new values must be created. Meaning is not received, it must be forged. He envisioned the Übermensch, not a tyrant over others, but one who overcomes himself, who refuses conformity, who accepts the burden of creating meaning in a world without guarantees. Yet there was a profound irony. Nietzsche wrote about strength while living in fragility. He wrote about self-creation while battling illness. He wrote about overcoming while largely ignored. In January 1889 in Turin, he witnessed a carriage driver whipping a horse. He rushed forward, threw his arms around the animal's neck, and wept before collapsing. Within days, his mind fractured. He began signing letters as Dionysus and the Crucified. He would never recover. The philosopher who warned against pity broke down in an act of compassion. For the remaining 11 years of his life, he lived in silence under the care of his mother and later his sister. He died in 1900, obscure and widely misunderstood. But after his death, his ideas spread across psychology, literature, existentialism, and political thought. The thinker who felt unheard became unavoidable. Was Nietzsche destroyed by his philosophy or by the intensity of seeing too clearly? It is easy to romanticize his collapse or reduce him to madness, but that misses the deeper challenge he posed. He believed that meaning is not given, it is created. To abandon inherited certainty is destabilizing. To stand without moral scaffolding is frightening. To build one's own values is exhausting. Most prefer safety, structure, and belonging. Nietzsche chose the harder path and paid for it. His greatest lesson is not about domination, but responsibility. If there is no predefined script, then you are accountable for your character. If there is no guaranteed meaning, then your life becomes the canvas. Freedom in this sense is not comfort, it is weight. To overcome is not to dominate others, but to refuse collapse under your own fear. Nietzsche's body failed him and his mind fractured. But his question remains, if nothing guarantees your meaning, what will you build anyway? That is the cost of becoming, and that is the burden of freedom.